Boatworks Today is a viewer-supported show. To learn more on how you can get involved and watch extended ad-free versions of these videos, please visit our website, boatworkstoday.com, and click on the top of the heading where it says Support This Show. Thank you. So, welcome back everybody. I hope you're all having a great weekend. My name is Andy with Boatworks Today, and for this video, well, basically we've got a lot of sanding to do. Now, if you remember from last week, I got the little divider sections in around this Helm area, and as long as I have good access to those, to the inside of the lockers, before I actually put a top on, while I still have good access, I should try and get all of the sanding and the fairing done. So that's what's going to be on tap for this week. Okay, so now after, well, I guess what I feel is like an excessive amount of sanding, this is how things are turning out. Now around the edges here, I got everything pretty well ground down to a nice taper. It's not perfect, which is what we're going to be doing with the fairing here. But I got all the corners and the bottoms pretty well shaped in. And then in particular, where I'm going to be fairing this corner onto the existing surface, I had to grind this back to actual bare gel coat. Now this entire locker at some point had already been painted, and well, epoxy isn't going to stick real well onto a painted surface. So I had to grind all that back, and I figure if I've got about 6, 7, 8 inches here, that should be enough to kind of feather this in and make it look pretty. Now as we move into the center section here, again, now with a little bit of shaping, I was able to get, I don't know how well it's going to pick up on camera, but I was able to get that little bit of a whoop. It's a very technical term. But I was able to get a little bit of a detail, kind of ground in right here, so it's not just straight flat and kind of boring. I don't know. I think it's going to add a little bit of a nice little touch. But again, in here, everything along the bottom as well as the sides has been feathered off. Not perfect, but feathered off. So now with the initial, shaping or sanding done, now we're ready to start mixing up some fairing compound. And what I'm going to be using for that is going to be my good old standby, little Mr. Total Fair. Now Total Fair is a 2-part epoxy fairing compound, and if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I have really come to love this stuff. Now when we're talking about fairing, there's 2 different schools or 2 different ways that you can look at, you can look to approach this. The first one being is that you can just basically dogpile the fairing on and then have to deal with a lot of sanding afterwards. If you're in a hurry and you only have a very limited amount of time to get your fairing mixed up and laid down, that can be, every once in a while something that might be worth trying. But for the most part, in the long run, it tends to be a lot slower than the way that I'm going to be approaching this. And the way that I like to do this is very similar to how like drywall guys, mudders do. It's better to do multiple thin coats than, like I said, than to just dogpile it and have an excessive amount of sanding to do afterwards. Now, when you're looking to do multiple thin coats, this is one of those things where less is more. The smoother you can get it laid out, the less sanding you're going to have to do. Now, something that may not be completely obvious, unless you work with this material a lot, is that because this is an epoxy-based compound, if you time it right, if you time your applications right, you can do multiple coats, on top of one another without having to sand. So basically, the way I'm going to be approaching this is I'm going to start initially doing a very narrow patch, kind of a light, thin kind of skim coat, just to kind of, fill in the worst areas, and then on the second coat, come in, use a wider trowel, add, kind of build it up a little bit more, and then the third time, my space is somewhat restricted in here, so I think I'm only going to be able to use 2 different size trowels. But if you're working over a larger area, then well, your third coat and fourth coat, if you have to go that far, would be your largest trowels that you have. So as far as like the actual recoat times, that's going to vary. It's going to really depend on what kind of temperatures that you're working in. Now here in the shop, I typically keep it around 65 degrees, which isn't really going to help me all that much as far as being able to get a fast cure. But you know, in the past, I've been able to come back and do, I guess, successive coats about every 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So basically, the first coat that you lay up, you want it to be set up but not cured. I mean, once it's cured, you know, then you're stuck, you're having a sand. But by setup, I mean, you know, where you can touch it, obviously it can't be sticky, but if you can still make a dent in the surface with your fingernail, then you're good. You can go right over top with some brand new fairing compound, and everything will bond just like you're doing like wet on wet. Think of it a little bit like laminating. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing. So once the material is set up, and it passes the fingernail test, you're good to go. You mix up your next batch and keep right on rolling. So today, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get 3 coats. I seriously doubt it though, because I have to check out early tonight. My wife has a meeting tonight, so I've got to get out, check out the shop here early and go watch the kiddos. So I'm hoping to at least get 2, because you know I want to minimize the amount of sanding, because as we all know, sanding just... So first things first, before we can mix up any fairing compound, we have to clean. And for cleaning, I'm going to be doing all the wipe down with the Total Boat, their dewaxer and their surface prep. Scrub a dub dub. Got our epoxy mixed up. Now, at least for this initial round, I'm not going to be focusing too much on these, I guess, the actual radiuses. Well, what I'm going to be focusing on at first is just going to be getting I guess, the faces coming out this way and coming out this way. Get those kind of shaped in, get rid of any little bumps and stuff. After I have that pretty well faired in, then I'll be coming in to focus on these corners. So round 1 done, so I've got some time to kill now. I'm gonna go clean up, have a quick bite, and I'll be back in a little bit. Now, I'm probably gonna check this again in an hour. I don't think it's gonna be ready to work again that soon. Probably closer to 2-hour mark, but I'll check it out if it's ready. Giddy up. So it's been about 3 hours, and right now the epoxy is set up to the point where it'd be perfect to go ahead and go over top of it again with another coat of fairing. However, I'm out of time for the day. I need to run home and watch the kiddos tonight. So, but before I leave, I do want to kind of zoom in and show you kind of what I was talking about as far as what to look for. How set up, how hard, how soft it should be, that kind of thing. So in case you run into it and you're able to do this on your project, at least you know what to look for. So let me switch cameras. Now, coming in and looking at this a little closer, I mean, you can feel it. It's not sticky, doesn't feel anything like that. But if you come in with either a screwdriver, your fingernail, whatever, something like that. When you're still able to make a dent in it like this, then it's fine to go over again. So, good morning. Well, it's the next day. And because it's been that long, the epoxy has been fully cured. So before we can do anything more, we need to sand this before we can do anything further. Now, when I'm sanding this, I'm going to try and get this orbit as quickly as possible. So I'm going to be using, again, 50 grit paper on a 6-inch random orbit. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that I'm holding the sander completely flat. I'm not going to ever put it up on edge to try and get a little bit closer into that corner, because right now, since we're at the fairing stage, we want flat. We don't want to create another little, scalloped edge or ripple or anything. So flat is the name of the game. So sanding isn't exactly my favorite thing to be doing, so I'm going to cue up a time lapse and try and get this over as quickly as possible. So after, nice hair, Miller. So after about an hour or so of sanding, using the 6-inch DA, this is how things are turning out. The tabbing that I ran came up about 2 inches. So right where the tabbing ended, that's obviously where there's going to be some low spots. And that seems to carry through pretty much all the way around. Now, obviously, I can't lay new material over top of the stuff that has not been sanded, so I'm going to have to come back and hit that by hand. I don't need to give it a really, really thorough scuffing, but I do need to have it scuffed. So I'm going to come in by hand, again, using kind of an old spent sheet of the 50 grit, get that scuffed up, get everything cleaned, and then we're ready to mix up some more material. Now, when I came in and I had to do the hand sanding here, I guess just before I wiped everything down, I did not sand everything down perfectly smooth. I want to be able to see those areas, so that'll show me where it is I need to be focusing when I'm spreading the second round of compound. All right, I think I'm going to leave this be. Let it do its thing. Unfortunately, it's already 4:30, which means I'm not going to have enough time to get a second coat on again yet today. 2 days in a row. So I'm going to clean up, put this to bed for the night, and I guess we'll see you in the morning. So it is a few days later, and for the sake of sparing you a bunch of boredom of watching material get laid up and sanded back down and laid back up, and well, I think you understand, why I didn't want to record all that, because honestly, it'd be pretty darn boring. But anyways, it's taken about 4 days of fairing right now, and fairing is typically one of the steps that takes the longest. It is the most time-consuming because there is always a wait time. You lay up material and you wait. Now, ironically, earlier in this video, I had mentioned what I usually like to try and do is to be able to, if I time it right, get 2, sometimes 3 applications of fairing compound laid up in a day. Well, just the way my days worked out timing-wise, I wasn't able to do that once. So a little bit of a bummer, which is why it's taken so long to get to this point. But we're finally at a good place. All the flat surfaces have been faired, sanded back down. They're good. The last step that I have to do is going to be the actual corners, like where the small little radiuses are. And that's the step that I always save for absolute last, because when you're sanding the faces, when you're getting right down towards the actual edge, your sander is always going to gouge that. So there's no point in spending any time on those radiuses until the faces themselves are pretty much done. So let me switch cameras and show you how things look right now. Now, as I had mentioned, pretty much all the sanding that I've done up to this point has just been focused strictly on these flat surfaces. So either side of this partition here, as well as here, and along the back edge, and going down along the bottom. I haven't really done anything on purpose to these, to these inside radiuses anywhere. But ironically, sanding these flat surfaces naturally created probably, I think this is probably close to about like a 1/4 inch radius right in through here. Now, this was not done on purpose. This was strictly nothing short of just dumb luck. But the way that that happened was because of, well, specifically this. This is just it's a removable edge protector. But what it does is it only allows you to get so close up to the edge before this hits the other surface, and it prevents the pad from digging in and actually cutting a groove in here. So by coming in up to, like on this angle, and then coming back in from the top, coming down, it naturally just created its own little radius in here. It's not perfect, but it's really, really, really close. The only thing I'm gonna have to do now is that as you're looking at the radius right in through here, this is bare fiberglass. And if you've ever tried to, I guess, get to like the finishing stages of bare fiberglass, you know that fiberglass, when it's bare, is going to be riddled with pinholes. It's just the nature of working with fiberglass. But using this little rounded tongue depressor here, this is really, really close to the exact radius that I need. So I'll be able to come in, just strike a light little line of fairing compound along this edge, along the back, all the way around. And it should be easy sanding, and at that point, it should be absolutely perfect. But unfortunately, I'm not able to completely get away from some hand sanding. Now, because I was using power sanders for the most part, on this whole area, there are still areas like right in here and over there, pretty much all of the corners all the way around, where the sander just wasn't able to get in there. So that's all right. I mean, if it's that little bit of that actually needs to get finessed by hand, I'm okay with that. So let me get things kind of cleaned up here, get some fairing compound mixed up, and let's try and get these corners knocked out. Actually, on second thought, I think I'm gonna cheat. Well, at least try it. If it goes sideways on me, then obviously I'll stop and I'll have to come back and do the hand sanding. But I'm thinking even if I remove a little bit too much now, I still gotta come back and do a little fine little fairing yet that I gotta put down. So, what's faster? To dish it out maybe a little bit too much and then do one last final coat of fairing compound? Or to spend the next hour sitting here by hand going I'm thinking I'm gonna take my chances. Yeah. So with the inside of these lockers all nice and faired out and looking good, it's time to move on to something else. Specifically, I want to start building these covers out and actually working on the platform. It's been a long time coming, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell. I'd love to have you on board. If you have any questions, comments, leave those down below, and as always, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.